The Atlanta Braves continue to add some solid depth this offseason with the signing of outfielder Bryan De La Cruz, but this can't be it. This can't be the answer for the outfield. We'll discuss that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you have, hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment down below, as it does help out the show a ton whenever you do those things. And if you're listening to this on the audio version, you can help out as well by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for all your support for Locked On Braves and making Locked On Braves your first listen each and every day. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about this Bryan De La Cruz signing. What does it mean? How should you feel about it? I'll try to point you in one direction, but you're always welcome to feel however you want to. But we'll get into everything that is meant by this De La Cruz signing, or at least what I think it means for the Atlanta Braves. We'll also spotlight Caminiti in our minor league segment for the day, and we'll talk about some of the big trades happening over the weekend. Some monster trades happening around Major League Baseball, probably in part due to the high prices that we're seeing, especially on the pitching side of things. So we'll discuss all that on today's episode, which is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, as I said there in the open, don't usually have a podcast on Sunday afternoon, and Bryan De La Cruz signing isn't exactly worthy of jumping on to do an emergency podcast. But with that and just all the big trades that have happened around Major League Baseball this past weekend, didn't want to make you wait until Monday night to get my thoughts on some of these moves. So I wanted to jump on Sunday afternoon while the kids are napping and go over some of these moves. So thank you for joining me here this afternoon to do so. Let's start with the Bryan De La Cruz signing, though. It's a 1-year non-guaranteed contract for the 2025 season. It's a split deal. It's not a minor league deal, but it is a split deal. And again, it's non-guaranteed. This is a no-risk signing for the Atlanta Braves. They can cut him at any point before the regular season and not have to pay him anything. So this is a very low-risk move for the Atlanta Braves. I think one of the big parts of this, he has 2 minor league options remaining. So yes, he's going to be on the 40-man roster, but you can also option him back to the minor leagues, which gives you incredible depth. He's about to turn 28, right-handed hitter. He was signed out of the Dominican Republic by the Astros in 2013. In 2021, in the Astros AAA system, he slashed .324, .326, .518 with 12 homers and a .116 WRC plus, just a 5.8% walk rate, but just a 20.1% strikeout rate. The Astros then traded him to the Marlins at that year's trade deadline in 2021, along with Austin Pruitt for Yimi Garcia. And then from 2021 to 2023, he was a serviceable everyday outfielder for the Fish in Miami, slashing .263, .311, .420 with 37 home runs in 326 games and an OPS plus of 96. So again, just slightly below average offensively, but again, just a fine player. In the first half of last season, in 2024, he was showing off some more pop. He had 15 home runs in the first 3 months of the season, going on his way to potentially 30 home run season. Remember, everybody was struggling to hit home runs at the beginning of last year, and somehow Bryan De La Cruz was having one of his best power surges of his career. And he had a 184 ISO, isolated power, through 83 games last year. But over the final 66 games of the season, which included a venue shift, which maybe is part of that, going to a new location where he went in Pittsburgh, not exactly great for power hitters either. But he hit just 6 home runs in his final 66 games, a near 30% strikeout rate over that time, only a 3% walk rate, and a 107 ISO. It was a disastrous end to the season for him. The Pirates traded for him at the trade deadline, trying to get some of that power, gave up a couple of prospects that were ranked in their top 20 of their system by MLB Pipeline. But again, it was just a disaster in Pittsburgh. He slashed .200, .220, .294 with only 3 home runs in 44 games with the Pirates. He walked 4 times and struck out 52 times in those 44 games. So again, it could not have gone much worse for Bryan De La Cruz. And who knows how much, not everybody is able to adapt that quickly going to a new team, but that's bad. And it's not like that trend had been going that way even in the start of June before the trade. He was kind of trending in that direction, but not to that level. That's about as bad as you've seen him play since he became a regular at the major league level. He was so bad, in fact, that despite the Pirates giving up a couple of their top prospects, not anything major, I think they were ranked 17th and 19th in their system, but despite giving up those 2 prospects for him, they decided to non-tender him this offseason instead of pay the projected $4 million that he was supposed to get through arbitration. And the Pirates just decided to let him go, that it wasn't worth bringing him back. And I think that's significant in the fact that you have the Marlins and the Pirates who both had this guy, both of those teams desperately in need of offense and power, and both of these guys just let him go. So again, I think that's a little telling right there. So all that said, why did the Braves acquire him? And the only rational conclusion is that he's depth. He has 2 minor league options left, so the Braves can stash him in AAA, give him a shot in spring training. As I said, it's a non-guaranteed deal, so they can cut him loose at any time before the season. So they can give him a shot in spring training, decide to carry him on the roster or send him to AAA, as you have that option. There's also the fact that he could be a short side platoon player. He had a 734 OPS against lefties last year compared to 619 against righties. In his career, he's hitting 270 against lefties compared to just 246 against righty, although he is slugged better against righties, and the OPS is about the same, but generally he's been a better hitter against left-handed pitching. So it's possible he becomes a platoon partner with Kelenic, or maybe he just becomes that right-handed bench off the bat, maybe replacing somebody like a Laureano. His expected slug, his average X velocity, his hard hit percentage, his barrel percentage, and his launch angle sweep percentage were all above average. Those are characteristics that the Braves generally like to work with. Again, as you know, the Braves like slug, and that's what they are generally looking for in their bats. And looking at those metrics for Bryan De La Cruz, there's something there to dream on if you can get him to make better swing decisions. Again, when he makes contact, it's usually quality contact, but he's chasing too much. He's swinging and missing too much. If you can work with him to get him to make better swing decisions with that good contact profile that he has when he makes good contact, maybe there is still some room for growth with Bryan De La Cruz. I would not be counting on that, and I hope the Braves aren't counting on that. So, but that could be some of the reasons why the Braves make this move. One, there's no risk in it. They can let him go at any time before the season without paying him anything. It adds depth with somebody that has minor league options and has plenty of regular playing time experience at the big league level. That is key. Short side platoon partner with Kelenic or right-handed bat off the bench. And his batted ball numbers and characteristics are what the Braves can build around and typically look for. So those are some of the reasons why you make this deal. Now, defensively, Baseball Savant rates him with average sprint speed, but poor range, very poor range. In fact, -8 OAA last year, according to Savant. However, his arm does grade out very well. I think, and I hope, that De La Cruz is nothing more than just a depth move in case nothing else materializes. There's little risk in bringing him in case there's essentially no risk because it's a non-guaranteed deal. So you bring him in. If nothing else happens in the offseason, you give him a shot in spring training, see what he can do. Maybe he can hold down the fort till Acuna comes back, and then maybe, depending on how things go, you make him a platoon partner with Kelenic or a right-handed bench bat. Or you go find somebody else, which I still hope is on the table and happens. You still give him a shot in spring training, and you stash him away in AAA for an emergency, which is what I hope happens. Either that or a right-hand. I wouldn't mind him as a right-handed bench bat either for the outfield to face lefties. I wouldn't mind that either. But if this is the move for the outfield this offseason, I'm going to be a little frustrated. And as I talked about last week on the podcast, I know we're all getting impatient that big move hasn't happened. And as I said in the headline, I don't know if it's the holiday season or whatever, I'm thinking about big meals. Thanksgiving we just came off of. You got the Christmas dinner coming up. I feel like we're getting a lot of the side dishes. We're getting the green bean casserole. We're getting the mashed potatoes, but we're not getting the turkey. We're not getting the ham. Where is the meat of this offseason? We haven't gotten that. There's been a lot of moves for depth, which is great and is needed, but we haven't gotten that meat, I feel like, this offseason. We haven't gotten that big move to really solidify this. As Braves Thrills and said, appetizer, protect PR, salad. I feel like that's what we've gotten so far. Look, I like those things. Those are all great. They lead up, to the big one. But where is it? We haven't gotten that. And I understand as Braves, as fans, we're getting impatient. We want that. We can't wait to get that big deal. And I still think it's going to happen. And like I said, I'm fine with this De La Cruz move. It's okay because there's little to no risk involved. But if this is it, then I'm going to be a little frustrated. It's like going to your Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner and it's nothing but side dishes. Yeah, as Matt says, I like potatoes. I like a good salad. I'm okay with those things, but they're not going to fill me up. And these types of moves, they're not going to fill up this roster the way that it needs to be filled up. So maybe I've gotten you all hungry and ready for snack or dinner or whatever now, but that's just what came to my mind was seeing all of these depth moves that the Braves have made. Yeah, these are nice. These are okay if there's more coming. And hopefully there is. Like I said, there's still a lot of moves out there that can be made. There's still a lot of offseason left, but this De La Cruz signing to me, it's just an appetizer. It can't be the big move, in my opinion, or I'm going to be a little bit frustrated with how this offseason has gone. But let's not give up on AA just yet. He's never let us down. I shouldn't say never. He doesn't usually let us down, and I fully trust in him. But this can't be it for me. It's a fine move for depth. There's no risk, but there's got to be more to it than that. All right, next we'll turn our attention to the minor league level where we're going to talk about Caminiti and what might be the top prospect in the Atlanta Braves system. We'll discuss him, and then we'll get into some of the trades that happened over the weekend. We'll get into that here next. The World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safe in your family's end zone. In sports, winning is everything. That's why you always need a good strategy to keep you moving towards the goalpost. Winning strategies for life are just as important, and that's where SelectQuote can help protect your legacy and your family's financial future. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. They also have some odds out there for the 2025 MLB season. You want to go out there and check those out. Again, you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way that you play. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thanks as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen, solely getting you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball this offseason. All right, let's get into our minor league spotlight this week because we're going to talk about Caminiti, 24th overall pick by the Braves in this past year's draft out of Scottsdale, Arizona. 18 years old as he reclassified for the 2024 draft. He was going to be one of the top picks in the 2025 draft, was projected to be, but he reclassified. So he was actually 17 when he got drafted, 18 now. He signed for the full slot amount of $3.56 million. was a two-way player in high school, and many thought he would have been a prospect as a hitter as well. But he really stood out on the mound 2 summers ago, and that's where he took off as a prospect. He was the highest ranked high school arm in the past draft, according to MLB Pipeline, and he somehow fell to the Braves at 24 as he was projected to go in the mid-teens. Pipeline says there's a chance for a potential 4-pitch mix in the future with a fastball that can get into the upper 90s and sits 93, 94 with good command, and he'll also mix in a curve, slider, and changeup. Now in 2024, obviously, he just got drafted, high school arm, young kid. Braves did not push him. He only made 1 start, went 3 innings, allowed 3 hits, no walks, 1 earned run, and 4 strikeouts. I went back and watched this brief outing, which is all we have to go off of so far with Caminiti, and I was impressed. I was very impressed with the kid. One thing that happened in this game that I think we probably don't take into consideration a lot of time, especially with high school players, is the pitch clock. You got a runner on second and was looking at him, and then the pitch clock timer ran out, and he got a automatic ball called on him. Next pitch gets thrown to the backstop, and so you just wonder. You got a young kid. I don't know. From what I understand, some high schools do have the pitch clock implemented, or at least maybe some of the events that players go to. But that's got to be an adjustment, I would think, for high school pitchers, going to a pitch clock like they have in the minor league level. So you wonder, how does he adjust to that? And I just saw it in this brief instant where, again, he got nailed for a pitch clock violation. Next pitch goes to the backstop, moves the runner to third, ground ball to shortstop. Maybe could have got the guy at home, but that's how the 1 run against him scored was, a pass ball after a pitch clock violation, and then a ground out scores him from third. Now, in this outing that I watched, this 3-inning outing, it was mostly fastball slider. It might have all been fastball slider. His slider, to me, it's set 79, 81, so it's a slower slider. It looked more like a sweeper to me, had a lot of cross action on it, going from left to right, left-handed batter's back to the box to the right-handed batter's box, but really good movement on it. But again, just that slow break that it has on it, it kind of plays more like a sweeper because of the low velocity on it and just the movement on it, but was really, really good. All 4 of his strikeouts came on that slider, 2 against the lefty, 2 against the righty. So he wasn't afraid to throw it to either side. So that's great to see for him. He struck out Blake Mitchell on that slider twice. Blake Mitchell, one of the top prospects for the Royals and ranks 51st overall, an all major minor league prospects. So that was very impressive to see getting him with that pitch twice. Now the fastball in the first inning, it was 94, 95. I even saw a 96 in there. But the second and third inning, it was more 92, 93. I did see him pump it back up to 94 in that final outing. But that's obviously something I'm going to watch and be keying in on for a young kid, is how does he hold that velocity throughout starts. That first inning, he gave up a couple of hits, so kind of became a little bit of a longer inning for him. Don't know what effect that might have had on him, but that's something just, that I'm watching with all young pitchers going forward. I'm still watching it with AJ Smith-Shawver, is how does that velocity play throughout? Is he able to hold it throughout the outing as he goes through a second, third time through the lineup and goes deeper into the ball game? But overall, I thought it was a good fastball. I didn't think it was anything special. Again, it's a 3 innings. It's not much to go off of here. I would like to see him get that more up in the zone. But delivery seems like a pretty simple delivery, not a lot of motion, not a lot of effort in that delivery, very repeatable, which is why many scouts think that he'll eventually have command of all 4 pitches. But again, I think I only saw the fastball slider. You can't always trust minor league announcers or the radar guns that they have at minor league ballparks, but that's what it looked like to me. Was fastball slider was the only thing he was throwing that day. It's hard to take away much from 3 innings, but I loved his presence on the mound as a young kid, bigger kid up there. I thought he had really good mound presence. He fell behind one guy 3-0. That was the only time he really came close to walking a batter. So good to see him fill up the strike zone. I'd like to see him, as I said, control that fastball at the top of the zone a little bit better, especially if he can keep that velocity up. I think that's going to make his off-speed pitches play a little bit better as well. All 3 hits that he gave up were on fastballs that were either middle or down, and one of them was kind of just a jam shot. There was not a lot of loud contact. Really only one loud ball that was hit against him. It was a fastball away, and it was after a guy had fouled off a couple of fastballs previously. I think, this was actually the guy that he fell behind 3-0, and he just kept throwing him fastball after fastball, and finally the guy timed one up and flew out to right field. But it was the hardest hit ball that I saw, at least with my eyes. I didn't have StatCast data there. That was the hardest hit ball that I saw. The singles that he gave up, one was one that just snuck up the middle of the infield. One was a jam shot that dropped into left field. And then one that kind of split the gap in left center. Outfielder couldn't cut it off in time, and the guy got a double out of it. So, again, good stuff. Not a lot to go off of here. Hard to project a kid that just turned 18. We've only seen 3 professional innings, but the package is there for him to be, a really good big league pitcher one day. Now, in order for him to reach that ceiling as a frontline starter, I'll need to see that fastball velocity tick up and stay up throughout the game, and him to be able to command that fastball at the top of the zone. And I need to see that changeup. I saw enough from the slider, sweeper, whatever you want to call it. That looks like a really good pitch for him. I need to see that changeup. It was the pitch they talked about his senior year that really became a go-to pitch for him, but I don't think I saw it in this game, and that's going to be key for him against right-handed hitters. So that is something I want to see next year, is what does that changeup look like? Because fastball, slider, those both already look solid to me. And if he can throw in that changeup as well, then it's really, going to just make his arsenal even that better, and his projectability even easier as somebody that could be at least a number 3 with maybe even more as possible a number 2 type of starter. So I'm excited about Caminiti, but again, not a lot to go off of, but you can definitely see the makings of him being a really good pitcher one day. All right, next, we're going to get into these big trades that are happening. We all thought if the Braves are going to make a big move, it's going to be in the trade market. Well, a lot of these options are passing them by right now, including Kyle Tucker. We'll discuss that move here next. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy your big tickets to your next big event, and you don't when you use Gametime. Gametime's the fast and easy way to buy all tickets for the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I'm getting ready to go to an event in my area here, so I'm constantly checking the Gametime app, looking for the best deals. Sometimes those best deals happen right up until the start of the event. They get killer at last minute deals. You get all in prices. You can filter right there. You know what you're paying before you even get to the checkout screen. No surprises there. And you get the view from your seat. You also get the Gametime guarantee, which means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. You also get the Gametime picks in there. You can filter it by what they think are the best deals right there in the app. That's very helpful as well. And again, all in prices you can filter, the view from your seat, all in one screen, makes it so easy to use. So download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, there were a lot of trades happening this past weekend. Part of why I wanted to go ahead and get this podcast in, because we got a lot to talk about. Because as I said, it sounded like the Braves, or we felt like, I guess I shouldn't say it sounded like, it feels like the Braves are going to make a big move this offseason, especially for the rotation. It's going to be through trade. But a lot of these trades are happening. The Brewers traded Devin Williams to the Yankees for Nestor Cortez, Caleb Durbin, and $4.5 million going from the Yankees to the Brewers. Cortez and Williams were projected to get about the same amount in arbitration. So the Brewers in this deal, they essentially get a 3-4 starter in Cortez for the rotation at half the price they were going to pay Devin Williams. And they get Caleb Durbin, who was a former Brave. Yankees were really hyping him up this offseason that maybe he was going to get a chance to start. I don't know if they were doing that just to pump up his trade value, but I guess it worked, because he gets included in this deal, goes to the Brewers. Now, while I don't love the profile of a Caleb Durbin, he does fit exactly what the Brewers do. A guy that can get on base still, has some speed. That is how the Brewers have formed their strategy over there, and it worked well for them last year. And again, I think he's going to fit well into that mold. So again, if that's the way you want to play things, I think this is a good fit for the Brewers. I thought the package was a little light for a guy in Devin Williams, who is one of the better relievers, but that was a 4. I heard that they were also sending a good bit of money to the Brewers in this deal. And like I said, I don't love the profile of Caleb Durbin, but he does fit exactly what the Brewers are trying to do over there. And then the Cubs trade Isaac Paredes, Cam Smith, and Hayden Wesneski for Kyle Tucker. Cubs better lock up Kyle Tucker soon. Otherwise, this trade just doesn't make a lot of sense for them. They just traded for Isaac Paredes, which never made sense because Paredes' profile is a pull hitter. Never really was going to work for Wrigley. It works perfectly for Houston. I think Houston made out really well in this deal. Of course, if I'm an Astros fan, I'd much rather just extend Kyle Tucker and keep him. But you get Paredes, who's going to hit 30 home runs into the Crawford boxes, and you get one of my favorite hitters from this past draft in Cam Smith, and you get Wesneski. So I thought this was a good trade for the Astros, and it's only a good trade for the Cubs if they lock him up. Maybe the Cubs surprise, like, wouldn't shock me at all if they win the Central next year, but I just don't see the Cubs being a World Series contender. Maybe I'm wrong in the offseason, still a lot of offseason left to go, but I just don't see that with the Cubs. So for me, for this deal to make sense for the Cubs, they either have to consider themselves a World Series contender next year, or they got to lock up Kyle Tucker long-term, because you just gave up, in my mind, one of the better bats from this past draft in Cam Smith. You gave up a guy that you just traded for, Isaac Paredes, and a decent arm in Wesneski. So I like this move for the Astros and Data Brown. Good trade for him. It gives the Astros a chance to still compete this year with Paredes, and it sets them up for the future as well with Cam Smith. Again, all in all, I'd rather have Kyle Tucker. I wish the Braves could have gotten Kyle Tucker. They didn't have that Cam Smith. Like I talked about with the Crochet trade, the Braves didn't have that Braden Montgomery to throw in there. The Braves didn't have that Cam Smith to throw in there to go get somebody like Kyle Tucker. Maybe it would have been a Caminiti if they wanted pitching prospects, but Braves weren't going to do that for a guy that they just drafted 24th overall and a guy that we just talked about I think has a lot of upside. But that was the package for Kyle Tucker. And then the shocking trade of the weekend, the A's trade for Jeffrey Springs. And if you remember from a couple of weeks ago, I talked about Jeffrey Springs, who's under club control for several more years at, I believe, about $10 million a year. So very affordable. And a guy that I really like, that I think, if healthy, can be a top of the rotation arm, and a guy that I really wanted the Braves to go after. And the A's go out and get him. And the A's have made several moves this offseason. And the Rays got right-handed pitchers Joe Boyle and Jacob Waters. They also got outfielder Will Simpson, and they got a comp A pick. And that could be in the 34 to 42 range, something like that. That's a very high pick that comes with a very solid bonus pool as well. So this was a good deal for both sides. I mean, like I said, I like Jeffrey Springs. He's controllable, he's affordable, and I think he can be a really good pitcher if healthy, which is a big if right now. But I like the move for the Rays as well. They get several prospects to add in there, but that comp A pick was really big for the Rays in getting that back. So that's another big move. Rangers signed catcher Tucker Barnhart to a minor league deal. I expect the Braves to make some type of move like that to get a veteran catcher to stash in AAA along with Drake Baldwin while they continue to develop him. And Jesus Luzardo might be on the move. Luis Castillo might be on the move. You're starting to see a lot of these pitchers get traded, and a lot more rumors about these pitchers potentially being traded because these prices are so high. And it's why we've talked about it. If the Rays are going to make a big move, it feels like it's going to be through a trade, but that's what everybody else is doing too. So it's driving up that market as well. But I think we're going to see more pitchers get moved this offseason. I think that trend is going to continue. It's just, will the Braves, at what point, as we talked about on Friday's Mailbag podcast, you can't be scared forever. At some point, you're going to have to overpay. You're just going to have to. And I know that goes against everything that Alex Anthopoulos believes in, but at some point, you're going to have to overpay, whether in free agent dollars or in trade, to get the guy that this team needs to help put this team over the top. As I've said repeatedly, this roster is good enough to win a World Series, but it is dependent on everybody producing like they're capable of and everybody staying healthy. And again, you could say that for many teams, but you just don't have that quality depth in the lineup or in the rotation. One guy regresses, one guy gets hurt, and next thing you know, this team's it's in the same situation it was last year. Last year, they were a good team. They won 89 games, but you never felt like they were going to go anywhere with all the injuries they had and some of the guys offensively that stepped back. You just never felt like that team was going to go much of anywhere. And again, that's the same worry that every team has. Look at, the Dodgers rotation. There's a lot of good players in that rotation. There's also a ton of question marks. So again, every team deals with that. But in order to set yourselves up the best you can going into the season, there's got to be more for the Atlanta Braves. There's got to be more quality depth there in case a guy regresses, in case a guy gets injured. And that is the job of Alex Anthopoulos this weekend or this offseason. Getting it done this weekend, that'd be great before the holiday season. And that's not Bryan De La Cruz, in my opinion. You may not agree. Let me know, certainly in the comment section below if you don't. But I think there has to be more from the Braves this offseason. All right, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon, a different time for us to go live here on the podcast. So thank you so much. We got over 160 people in here. So maybe this is the time we should try to whenever the kids go down on Sunday afternoon. But thank you so much for joining me. James Holt, Braves Thrills here since the beginning. Protect PR, Docs Cards, Jack Norton, Mass Boost. Appreciate y'all joining me. Dave Agnesia. Matthew says, he tied up too much money in the Kelenic trade. He just doesn't seem worth it to me. We still have to pay David Fletcher $8 million next year. And as a result of that trade, Kelenic isn't even worth $8 million. I agree. Look, I didn't mind the shot to go get Kelenic, but again, unless he's really going to turn it around this upcoming year, which is not out of the question, it feels like that was way too much maneuvering by AA last offseason and kind of backfired a little bit. And now you're stuck with David Fletcher, who nobody wants, and the guy you can't play. But thank you all for joining me on today's podcast. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. Make sure you go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Make sure you follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.